than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch. This is the show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Guys, I want to talk about property investing only today. I want to talk about, some of the things that they don't tell you about when investing in a property. Everyone talks about the good stuff. No one talks about the bad stuff. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. It's a journey. It's just like anything else, whether you're setting up a business. I've always said, treat your property investing like a business. My first thing that I said in business when I first started B.Invested was numbers don't lie. Your emotions can lie, your thoughts can lie, a salesperson can lie. There's lots of things there that can take you off track, but numbers don't lie. So make sure that you always have at the forefront strategy and having the numbers. You know what you need, and if those numbers stack up, then do it. If the numbers don't stack up, don't do it. I've got here just a few little topics to talk about today, and I guess the reason for doing this topic and to do this week's podcast is every time I go onto Facebook or Instagram or one of my social media channels out there, I will constantly see all these experts, right? Every week there's a new buyer's agent out there, right? When I first started the business 13 years ago, it's actually our 13th birthday in March. Time just goes so fast, I forgot to even make a big song and dance about it. But B.Invested has been around since 2009, March 2009. And when we first started the business, it was a very different time in the world. There wasn't actually buyer's agents out there in the market, but now there's courses on how to be a buyer's agent out there. Everyone's a buyer's agent, right? So how do you sift through the buyer's agency environment and work out, okay, who's going to be able to get me to where I want to be and who's going to be able to look after my best interest? Also, beyond that, I see that there is so many slimy, greasy, ugly salespeople out there trying to sell you their sort of secrets or their strategy to success, and a lot of things out there to be very, very careful of. I've seen recently there was a person, and I'm not going to go into names of this person. It's a bloke, and he used to post all these really cool internet marketing sort of videos, and he talked about all these results, and people used to come to us as a business and say, Nathan, what makes you guys different to this company? And I used to say, well, firstly, I've been doing it for the last almost 20 years, but I don't see the substance behind this guy. So I believe the person may have come to our office for a map session many years ago. I've seen quickly the numbers change, and I know how hard it is to be successful with my property investing strategy, my property journey and whatnot. And, to see these cool, slick internet ads promising really great returns and all that sort of stuff, I always questioned. I thought to myself, this doesn't feel sustainable. It feels a bit like a Ponzi scheme. And recently, every time I get sent, every couple of days, I'm getting sent articles from people saying, look at this guy, he's a crook, he's in trouble, whatever. And I think the guy ran off with about $25 million or something worth of people's money. And, that's where greed gets caught up. A lot of people will go for the flashy, the glossy, the promised returns and all those sorts of things, but based on what sort of substance. So for me, I'm always about getting the greatest amount of exposure to a market and to as much asset that I can under my belt, and I want to remove as much risk as I can. So whenever I buy something, I always want to buy the physical asset. If I'm buying properties, I'm not buying a property fund, I'm not buying in a hedge fund, I'm not buying in anyone's property group or anything like that. I'm buying a physical piece of real estate. I own the title, I'm on the title deed, it's my property, I control the property. There may or may not be a bank in there. For the last 5-6 years, I have not got one bank loan. I have to buy these things cash. And I want to know that I've got the physical asset. If I'm buying precious metals, I want to make sure that I'm buying a physical piece of gold or silver. If I'm buying cryptocurrency, I want to make sure that I'm buying the Bitcoin or the crypto or whatever sort of cryptocurrency it is. I don't want to be buying into some sort of fund or some sort of trust or some sort of entity which I don't control, because that's where all the tricks and smoke and mirrors come. So I guess some of the questions, some of the points here that I want to discuss today, the first one here is you could have a dodgy tenant. So people go and buy a property and they'll be like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. Or they'll be like, I could get a property with a dodgy tenant. How do you minimize the risk around that? So every time there is a risk or there's a problem, you need to look at how you can minimize that risk and how you can remove the risk from the equation. So as an investor on all of my properties, I want to make sure that I've got building insurance, I've got landlord insurance, and I've got a very good property manager to ensure that the processes and procedures in managing that property is going to minimize the risk. And if one of those things fail, then you go to the next area. So ideally, the property manager is great. They don't find those dodgy tenants, but if they do slip through the cracks, well, then how do you manage it? Well, if I've had properties where tenants have done bad things to them, they haven't paid rent, etc. And to be honest, I've been very excited when I see that a tenant has trashed the place, because I know that I've got the comfort of my insurance, and I'm trying to think of politically correctness of how to say this. That's why I'm being very careful with my words. But I just instantly think, okay, well, lucky I've got insurance there. They're going to take care of this for me. And most of the times when this has occurred, I've ended up with a renovated property, because if they trash the kitchen, they trash the bathroom, they trash the walls, well, then the insurance company has to come and fix that for you. And when they fix it, you've got something better than what you had to start off with, because it's new and not old. So looking at the risk there, like, you can have dodgy tenants, you can have things that go wrong, but it's minimizing that risk. If you have an investment property anywhere in Australia, you could get a real estate agent to look after your property. I don't really trust real estate agents. I've never looked after the properties myself. It's the worst thing. I tried it once with a tenant, but it's the worst thing. I've seen many people try and self-manage their properties, and that is where a lot of the biggest problems come. When you see something on Current Affair, it is 9 times out of 10 where a tenant has trashed the property. It's because the owner has managed the property himself, trying to be a tight ass. So make sure you have a very competent property manager. I feel like there's a big difference between managing my assets and having a property manager in the back of a real estate agent looking after my property. So for me, I set up a business going back about 10 years ago, called Blink Property, where I manage properties nationally in most states, cities, and even regional areas across the country. Email us at admin@binvested.com.au. Tell us where your properties are at, and I will get my team to put you in contact with the local asset manager in your area. I've literally got hundreds of staff nationally across all different industries doing different things. And just for example, just up the coast of Queensland, in every single little town and region, we've got 50, 60 staff throughout the whole state there, which manage property. So if you need help, reach out to us. We've got people on the ground that can help you get the best results for your property. Big one today in 2022 is the second one, is what happens if your property gets flooded or burnt. Fires that are out there, floods that are out there. I think it's very important when purchasing a property, you do the due diligence to make sure that you're not buying into a flood area, or that you're not buying into a bushfire prone area. I've never had a house burned down due to a bushfire. I have had tenants destroy them, and when they get burnt down, they've been very nice because I've got the insurance payout. And I've never had a property flood because I don't buy in flood areas. So just make sure when you're purchasing the asset that you're not buying into one of those sort of areas. And you can sort of tell a property just by how it sits and how the property looks. If it's in a flood area, it'll probably have some stilts. It'll probably have a different type of building design to it to accommodate for the flooding. You want to make sure that you check all your council maps and stuff like that. There is a difference between an overland flooding. Like some areas might see a little bit extra dampness on the ground. They might see, if it gets a really big flood. I remember as a kid, I grew up in an area definitely not flooding. Like I lived on top of a hill, and my mum still lives there. And it was in an area which never flooded. But I remember there was a flash flooding in 1990, 1991, something like that. And I remember looking out the front, and there was all these bins floating down the street, and I was like, shit, they're just going down the street. It was just so much rain had occurred. That is not a flood. You don't want to buy in areas which are flood prone areas, so make sure you do that search when you buy the property. I guess number 3 is looking at all these spruikers. Just as I said, there was some guy, I think he threw his kid and his wife into the marketing, had some tattoos, bit jacked up, whatever, and made himself look cool, and sold a great spill. I see there's a lot of these people out there selling The property market's booming, get in now. We've seen 50% growth. Properties have doubled in the last 2 years. Hop on the bandwagon, and people selling FOMO, right? Who are you buying an asset off, right? When you're buying the asset, who are you buying the asset off? Are you buying it off a buyer's agent? Are you buying it off a real estate agent? Are you buying it off a financial planner, right? Is it new? Is it secondhand? You want to make sure, you want to follow the trail of money. And I always talk about this trail of money, right? Like when I talk about, a conspiracy theory, right? Let's just call it a conspiracy theory. You want to go, who is funding something, right? Let's just make up a little funny story here, right? Apparently the other week, there was the Oscars, and Will Smith went up and slapped Chris Rock in the face. Everyone was outraged. I only knew about it because everyone was going, what's this? And I had to look at it and go, what's everyone talking about? And I was like, that's a bit weird. Like, this guy got slapped, who cares, right? Like, someone had a fight, good luck. But then later on it comes out and it goes, well, he said something about alopecia and losing hair. And allegedly, if you go to the Oscars website, you will see that a medical company called Pfizer is the main sponsor of the Oscars. And then when you go and look at what Pfizer's working on, they've got a new drug out for alopecia, right? Which is the thing that everyone's now talking about out there. So there you go, okay, well, was that a stunt, right? Just remembering that everyone on the TV is an actor, right? Was it an act to get awareness because of the sponsor of that show? Who knows, right? But I always like to go back and track, where does the money lead to? So if you've got a financial planner, why is the financial planner or the financial advisor telling you to go and buy a specific property for? What are they getting out of it? If it's a brand new property, rest assured they're probably getting a $20,000, $50,000 sort of commission payment. The highest I've seen is about $70,000 for selling an off the plan property. So these properties that people sell that are brand new, generally are well overpriced. It's like buying a brand new car for paying a massive premium for. And these people are lining their pockets full of commission. So you want to make sure you're following the line. You want to make sure, if you're buying off a buyer's agent, how long have they been in the industry for? How long have they been investing for? What is their track record? How many investors have they got that have got, large portfolios? Is this person a one-trick pony, or they've got multiple track records, right? It's easy to see that a market can boom, right? An absolute moron could have made money in the last 3 years in property investing, right? However, making money year after year, decade after decade is very, very important. For me, I'm a contrarian investor, so I want to go into markets when they're smashed, right? When the price is the lowest, everyone doesn't want to buy there. That's when I want to go in, because I'm picking them up at the cheap. There's so many people out there now talking about, the market's hot, I better get in. People saying they want to buy in the Sydney market. I think that 95% of the properties for sale in Sydney are so far overpriced, I never want to fucking touch one. They're so expensive. I own heaps of property in Sydney, done very well out of the boom. But would I be going out and buying a new house and land package for $1.5 million with no eaves attached to the house? Absolutely not. Would I be spending $1 million for a unit in Sydney at the moment? Absolutely not. Would I be buying an ex-housing commission in Western Sydney for $1 million? Absolutely not. There's some markets we can pick up in good blue chip areas for 300,000, 350 still. Those markets, good. So you want to make sure that, just because the market has moved, if we look at Gold Coast and Brisbane, I was buying probably 50 properties per month for the last 7 to 8 years in that market. About 18 months ago, I stopped buying so aggressively, and I might buy maybe 2 or 3 a month in this region now, and I buy in lots of other areas. The reason being is that market, when I was buying in, everyone was laughing, going, why would you buy in the Gold Coast for? That market's shit, it's done nothing, etc., etc. And I always said, if you go back through my old videos, that the Gold Coast and Brisbane market will take off. When the next boom comes, that will be the biggest takeoff sort of market. So I'm not buying in that market because I can't justify paying 550, 600 grand for a townhouse or a unit that used to sell for 200,000 I was picking up 2 years ago. I'm going to other markets which are suppressed with good upside and good fundamentals, which is like that market, but just not that market. So just be aware that markets do not always move and go upwards, right? Over the course of the last 20 years of investing in the property market, 19 years this year I've been investing, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've seen, like, for example, when I first started investing, the Sydney market dropped by about 40%. literally, the Sydney market, everyone knows the Sydney market's the best, right? I saw the market go into a recession pre-GFC, right? So Sydney market peaked in 2003, went backwards from 2003 to 2007, and when the GFC hit, they dropped the interest rates, they put stimulus packages in place, and then the market took off. People were expecting the market to crash when the GFC came. People were expecting the market to crash when Corona came. But what happened, the market did something very different, and it's because people are looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at stats, they're looking at TV, they're looking at all these actors that are out there telling you, on the nightly news or whatever they want to tell you. But the reality is that if you follow where the money goes and where the money comes from, you'll see that they're printing money, cheap money. Everyone's got cheap, easy, available credit now. There's stimulus packages like never seen beforehand, and that's what's causing these markets to go up in value. So just remember, when you're buying a property, don't get caught up in the FOMO. Look at stuff and go, okay, what happens if this market was to crash? How much higher could this market go in the current format? Could it keep going? Would the wages around me support that? What would happen if you tweaked interest rates a little bit? So these are all things that you need to throw into the equation to see if the deal is a good deal or not. So just make sure, as I said at the start, numbers don't lie. Treat your property investing like a business. Looking at the next thing is there are markets within markets. So you've got the outer market, right? Everyone is saying the market is booming out there across Australia, across the world. There's everything going up. And I like to look at that and go, okay, everything's gone up by 50%. Everything's gone up by 100%. Everything's gone up by 30%. What has gone down? What is not moving yet? Why is it not moving? Right? There's markets within markets. So just as much as we can see Sydney going up, we can see Queensland going up, there's areas that haven't gone up and have come backwards. Going back in 2010, we saw the Sydney boom happening. We saw the mining boom crash. We saw in 2015, the Sydney market sort of heat up, get to a point at the top, come backwards a little bit, and then take off again. But we started to see areas like Perth. Perth crashed big time. Perth is going through a boom at the moment. There's many other areas. You don't want to go into an area when it's booming. You want to go through it when it's crashing and pick up all the assets on the cheap. So just understand that just because the greater market moves, there is inner markets that haven't moved for 5 years, 10 years, 2 decades. Another common thing is people saying that you don't have enough money or you need more money to get into the property investing game. Looking at it, it just comes down to what your strategy is. What is it that you're trying to buy? There's a lot of people out there that will try and sell you a property just to get their commission. So as I said multiple times today, follow the money, see who's getting paid. A broker can sell you a property. It can say, hey, go buy, like a mortgage broker can tell you to go buy a property for $1 million. It's better than buying a $500,000 property. Why? Because when they write that loan, they're getting paid commission based on $1 million instead of the commission based upon $500,000. And if you break that down another step, if you were to buy 5 properties at $200,000, which is $1 million, or 1 property for $1 million, the broker would have to work 5 times as hard by rewriting those loans every step to get paid the same amount of money as if you just bought 1 property. So, looking at how much money you need to get started, a lot of people will try and either sell you a 5% deposit, the minimal deposit as possible, whatever. I'm a big fan of having a 20% deposit. So if you've got 50 grand, I like to work backwards from that and go 50 grand, I could buy a property for 250K. If you've got 30 grand, you can buy a property for 150K. And then once you've got your budget, you can go, okay, the bank might say they'll lend you $2 million, right? Bank might say they'll lend you $500,000. But if you've only got 30 grand, don't try and push yourself to get to a $500,000 property or $1 million property. Okay, I've got 30 grand. I could go buy a property for 150K, put that down as a 20% deposit, go back, pull out that equity and purchase my second one, third one, fourth one, and build up the cash flow. Once again, having a strategy and buying based on numbers, not based on emotions or any other sort of aspects of it. A lot of people, there's one here, once again, looking at all these spruikers out there, they're saying, look at the gains. This person bought a property for $250,000, now it's worth $400,000. This property was purchased for $500,000, now it's worth $700,000. Call us today. There's all these companies out there today that are trying to promote success stories, right? And I do the same thing sometimes, but I just throw it out there. It is what it is, and I talk about lots of other fun and interesting things that I can talk about. So as they're selling their success stories, right, you need to look at it and go, okay, just think about it again and go, well, every person that owned any sort of asset, doesn't matter if it was an old Datsun 1600, an old Toyota Corolla, or a shitbox in the back of Western Sydney, has gone up. So that is not such a smart idea that the property has gone up in that period of time. How have you been able to generate it? Property is a long game. It's not just a short-term sort of investment. You need to look at the big picture and go, okay, how's this asset going to perform for me today? How's it going to perform for me in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 20 years' time? How's this property going to help me overcome my next hurdle on getting to my end goal? Quite a lot of people will look at the property and say, hey, I want to have a house, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do the next thing. But they're looking too much at the physical asset, but not thinking about the other parameters, like how does the finance stack into this? How does everything else work? In a world today when we've got access to like lots of cool stories, and you've got lots of content, lots of information going out there being fed to you every single day, you need to look through all the bullshit. Property investment is not sexy, it's not flash, but it's very fundamental. Anyone that's trying to promote property as sexy and this is cool, check out my cool car, whatever. I've had Bentleys before, I've had all that sort of stuff. It doesn't good luck. I'll drive a shitbox, that's fine. But there's lots of people out there that are trying to sell you the lifestyle and the dream and the house and some cool videography and all that sort of stuff. Be very, very aware, because property investing is not sexy, it's not flash, but it is very fundamental. Just last night before recording this, I had to go and help someone. I had 100 doors, right? 100 doors. It's like tons and tons of doors. They're solid doors. And I needed to send some up to the top of Australia, and it was difficult to get them. But I actually had a tradie going up there, so I said, take this trailer, put it on your car, and take those doors off when you get somewhere, and leave those brand new doors there for the trades in that area. I didn't want to have to do that, but I did, right? Because it's a part of my investing journey to help things move along. There is times when I've had to pick up things, and years ago I used to hop on the tools myself. I'm not a big fan of hopping on the tools. I had to do it to start off with to build sweat equity, but I've never actually heard anyone in the last 2 years, 3 years, throughout all these booms, talk about any way of building sweat equity. They're just talking about, buy this thing, buy that thing. Think about it, like, how am I making my next deposit happen? How's this property going to get me more cash flow so I can retire earlier? How's this asset going to get me more cash flow so I can keep the bank happy so I can go on and buy more properties? They're the things you need to be asking yourself. If you need help when it comes to the finance, I forgot to go and shamelessly spruik myself, but if you need help when it comes to finance, reach out to my team once again at admin@binvested.com.au. I have a finance team, Zinger Finance, which helps people at all different stages of their journey, whether they're just starting out, whether it's buying their 10th, 15th, 20th, 30th property in their portfolio. We specialize at each step of that portfolio to help you build out that position. So if you need help, if you have a loan, if you're thinking of buying property, reach out to my team, see if there's something we can do to structure your debt better, and make sure that you've got a good, solid debt strategy in place. Number 7 is all about finance, right? A lot of people message me and speak to me on the phone on a day-to-day basis, say, Nathan, I want this, I want that, I want the next thing. That's good. I want everything, right? And I want to work out how I can make it happen. Just because you want to buy something doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. Just because you can afford to buy a property today doesn't mean that's what you should be doing. You want to be thinking about the finance. It's all about the finance, right? It's not just about the property. You want to make sure that the property that you're acquiring, I call it the asset because I just don't care about the property all that much. The asset that you're buying, you want to make sure that it's helping you get closer to the next asset that you acquire. So then you think, okay, if I buy this one, what's going to happen to my serviceability? What's going to be happening to my cash flow? What's going to happen to my equity? How's this going to help me get to retirement? And you need to be thinking about that. You need to be planning your strategy when it comes to debt accumulation and asset selection to make sure that you're buying the right assets and you're not going to put a roadblock in front of yourself, because it's pretty hard to go back and undo some of these situations. Like people over the last decade I've seen, and it's like they come to me and they're like, I'm stuck, I can't do anything. I'm like, well, we can fix it. It's going to be very slow now, but you could have done so much greater and you wouldn't have lost the opportunity if you hadn't have done this one and you have done this one and this one first, and then go back and buy those properties. Not that they even bought bad properties, it was just that the bad timing or when they bought the asset, because it was going to gobble up all the servicing and hurt them financially from a bank perspective and from a finance perspective. The other thing is, be very careful. I've touched on this today. Be careful of who you are taking your advice from. Make sure they've got runs on the board. Make sure that you're not getting sucked in. I'd say 90% of the people that I'm seeing on the internet, on the ads, I can see straight through their bullshit. I've seen them come, I've seen them go over the last 2 decades of being an investor, and it just oozes out of them. So be very, very careful. Make sure that they're going to be able to get you to where you need to be, and make sure they've got a track record, and make sure that what they are telling you is making sense, financial sense, to get you from this step to the next step very, very clearly. You need to have clarity on that front. I guess the last 2 things is what separates a successful investor from an unsuccessful investor. There's many, many different facets to building a portfolio. I think having clarity, having a strategy is very, very important. The first thing is to have a strategy. You need to have a game plan on what you're trying to do, because you don't know how to travel somewhere if you don't have a clear roadmap on how to get there. So have a strategy. Make sure that you are buying and making choices that are going to help you get closer and closer to that strategy. The other thing as well is having a strong EQ. So emotional intelligence is very, very important. I see so many people over the years which have gone out and they start doing something, they get fearful, they get an ego, they get greedy. There's different types of emotions that can affect you, whether it's fear-based emotion, whether it's ego-based emotion. You can make very, very bad decisions based on any emotional aspect. So you want to be able to keep the emotion out of it. And the best way to keep your emotion out is make sure that you're making logical decisions. And to have logical decisions being made, you need to have clarity as to where it is that you're going and where it is that you're starting from, and what opportunities you've got and what vehicles you've got in front of you. I guess at the end of the day, there's many opportunities out there. There's many different strategies. Everyone's trying to spruik their point of difference out there in the market. It's a market that's completely saturated from all of these property spruikers out there in 2022. You want to make sure that you've got a good balance of cash flow coming through week after week, day after day, and it's still possible, very possible to do it in 2022. You want to make sure that you've got good growth happening in your property. So you're buying properties which have got upside for growth. You want to make sure that you're buying properties that have got inbuilt equity as well. So I always talk about those 3 things, but I think it's very, very vital to break that down. So for example, in 2022, you can still buy properties in decent locations. When I say decent, like in large 200,000, 300,000 populations, so not little remote rural places. Places with very, very significant infrastructure and even large capital cities, you can still buy properties for 150,000, 200,000 in 2022 that rent out for 250, 350 a week. That's the starting price to get into those sort of markets, and then goes up from there. You can still buy blocks of units which are less than $1 million that bring you in, $3,000 a week, $4,000 a week of income, which is 15-20% yields. So I guess on that front, covered off on a lot today. There is good things out there in property. There's bad things out there. It's about managing risk along the journey. If you need help with your journey, if you need help with if you're stuck in your portfolio, you need help with finance, you need help with managing your properties, you need help with buying the properties. Here at B.Invested, I'm the principal buyer's agent. I buy all the properties for all of my investors. I've done it for the last 13 years with my investors, and I've bought tens of thousands of properties for myself and other people over the years. So if you need help on that, reach out to us, 1300 367 925. Email us at admin@binvested.com.au. Remember to share us, like us, leave us a comment below, and subscribe to us on Google, Apple, and Spotify. And you can also find us on YouTube every week. And we'll catch up soon. Look forward to being a part of your journey. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar about to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I never been a fan failure. Excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling ya. I'm the opposite, like Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really